Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and today we're talking with Dr. Paul White, author of The Vibrant Workplace, Overcoming the Obstacles to Building a Culture of Appreciation. Dr. Paul White, welcome to the program.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here with you.
Dr. Paul White is a psychologist, speaker, consultant, and author whose passion is making work relationships work. For over 20 years, he's assisted businesses, government agencies, schools, and nonprofit agencies to improve staff morale and create positive work environments, learn how to communicate individualized, authentic appreciation among team members, reduce the sarcasm, cynicism, and negativity associated with toxic work environments, and build positive work cultures by discovering how to overcome the most common obstacles faced. Additionally, Dr. White is a high-energy, humorous speaker who provides practical daily life tips for improving work-based relationships. He's spoken across North America, Europe, Central Asia, the Caribbean, China, and South America. For more information, you can contact him at email admin@appreciateatwork.com or visit his website, drpaulwhite.com. You also were co-author with Dr. Gary Chapman on a book related to this on the 5 languages of appreciation. And you come with quite a CV, Dr. Paul, that I think that all of us who have ever had a job have experienced a toxic workplace.
Right. Unfortunately.
You know, we spend more hours at work than we spend at home.
Yep.
The workplace is supposed to be productive. The vision is for profit. Companies are for profit or for nonprofit if that's their vision, like ours is. What are some of the people dynamics that we find are commonly being struggled with each day in the workplace?
Well, there's a lot, and you know, I think part of it has to do with people's worldview and where they get worth. And you know, if you're not a follower of Christ, if you don't understand that we're created by God, for God, and He redeemed us to live for Him, then you got to try to figure out what the purpose of life is. And for a lot of people, it's work, whether that's for survival, you know, to earn money, to provide for yourself and your family, which is obviously a legitimate need. There's also the issue of achievement and recognition and, you know, being viewed well by others. There's that competition part about being better, being successful, whatever that is, whether that's money or possessions or, you know, titles or whatever. And then, you know, we hear more and more among younger workers, they want to, you know, make a difference. They want to change the world. And so there's that sort of social impact aspect. And all of that drives and comes down to relationships because depending on what your purpose and view of work is, it then impacts how you relate to other people. Because if it's to reach the goal, you know, and there are a lot of leaders and workers that, you know, other people are resources to help you get where you want to go. And so that becomes a use kind of way of treating people. And Dr. Chapman and I, you know, he wrote The 5 Love Languages, which is a tremendous book on personal relationships. And I work in the realm of workplace relationships. And so I approached him about how can we, you know, apply these to workplace relationships. And so we saw that the sort of common core was appreciation and that people want to feel valued, you know, that yes, we have to motivate ourselves, but there are times when you get discouraged and you'd like to hear from somebody else that they value what you do. And so that's what appreciation is about. And some people understand that. And it's not just about, you know, I'm a psychologist and, you know, I'm fine with the jokes about, you know, we're going to have a group hug at the end, you know, I mean, or whatever. It's not just about making people feel good. And neither is it just to make people more productive, because we actually know that it does that. But it's to, you know, affirm the value of people, and then good things happen. Because when people feel valued, then they're more receptive to input. They work together as a team. So there's lots of sort of permutations that come from it. But it all stems back to what's work about and how does that relate to me and how do I relate to you as a result.
Well, you took a personal shot at me in your introduction.
I did name you, though. I could have, but I
You
didn't
could
name
have.
you.
The false knight in shining armor employee recognition. I was a knight of the round table at Hewlett Packard. It was an inner circle of high-level performers that were the best in their area, chosen from around the nation, and we were brought together 4 times a year to be knights of the round table. And of course, in your introduction, you talk about the false knight in shining armor employee recognition program. I spent 35 years in corporate America. AT&T won their big award, which was the E for Excellence Award, and for Hewlett Packard, and won the Knight of the Round Table trophy and position of honor. And it was the most toxic 35 years of my life. I climbed the ladder of success on the backs of my fellow employees. And in any interview that I ever had, and people say to me, would ask me the question, where do you want to be in 5 years? I say, well, I don't want your job. I want to promote you out of your job. I want to be one level past you because I've lifted you up that far, and you will be beholden to me based on my performance. And they would look at me and say, that's a bold statement. And I said, but if it works out to be true, you've jumped 2 levels in 5 years, and there's nobody else that can do that for you but me. Now, that's a pretty arrogant statement, but I got every job that I ever interviewed with that statement, because that's not the narrow, where do you want to be in 5 years? Oh, I want to be in your seat. I didn't want their job. I want to be much further ahead. There is, I come out of the old school, 1973, where my first boss was a retired Marine colonel, and I was taught this lesson. Nothing in the world happens until somebody sells something. Mm-hmm. That is the beginning, that is the genesis of economics.
Right.
And therefore, the highest calling of any person is a salesperson. Well, because I was hired to be a salesperson.
Got it.
People were human capital, the even concept of human capital, and I wound up in the human capital industry, didn't play any part. People didn't care about whether or not you were happy in your job. You got a paycheck. Okay? You got paid to be unhappy. Okay?
There you go.
You got paid well to be unhappy. So when did corporate America wake up and realize that, one, we're not doing this right? Our employee recognition programs, they're going to the same people, and there's a tremendous amount of resentment towards those people. Where I think it may be an absolute, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it is 99% never the best qualified person who gets the promotion. It is the person who is liked the best who gets the promotion.
Or who has an important relationship with somebody who's making the decision. They may not be liked, but they have an important relationship, and so they get it. And let me back up and just say, when did the corporate world wake up about recognition? They're still waking up. I mean, until 2011, when we published our book on the 5 languages of appreciation, the whole focus was on recognition and rewards, that you get some praise in front of people and then you get something as a result. And what we have found that those 2 languages, if you will, of appreciation only cover about 50% of the employees. And secondly, the way they do it is often in a way that's not valued or wanted by the recipients. We know that every time I do a presentation or training, I ask people to say, okay, raise your hand if you really would rather not go up in front of a large group to be recognized. Consistently, 30 to 40, sometimes 50% raise their hand, depending on the group. Administrative assistants, it's about 60%. Librarians, it's 90%. High-performing salesmen, they're like, where's the TV and the camera? Bring it on. I mean, and so they're wanting that, and so they often are sort of helping design these kinds of things, and they assume everybody else wants it. When I had one, female leader tell me, she said, I spent the 15 minutes before getting the award in the bathroom throwing up because I was so nervous about, getting it. And so they don't understand sort of what they're doing, and also that it's not only about performance. Yes, recognizing performance is a good motivator, especially for salespeople and other managers. It's not for everybody. And if you're in a high performance kind of environment, after a while you start to realize they don't give a rip about me. They don't, it doesn't matter whether it's me or Julie or Ted or, a machine cranking the sales. As long as the sales are cranking, it's good. Once the sales drop off, I'm dead meat. And so what has happened is people start to react to feeling like I'm only a work unit, I'm only a production unit, whether they're a salesperson or otherwise, versus understanding, and this is the message that Dr. Chapman and I, try to put forth, is that people have value as a person, and that we need to affirm that. And it's a great way to build, loyalty in employees when they know that you care about them as a person, not just as a producer. And so we talk not just about recognizing performance, but there's, would you rather work with a cheerful person or a grumpy person? Hey, I'm all about the cheerfulness, and I'm gonna appreciate somebody who is smile and has a positive attitude rather than somebody who's complaining all the time. And so, there's the corporate world is still learning or not getting it, and that's okay, because what we've found is we don't need to start at the top of an organization to make a difference. There are lots of people in the middle that have started showing appreciation in a way that's meaningful to another person and authentically, and start to impact the relationships, and other leaders, supervisors, managers say, hey, what's going on over there? They find out about it, then learn about our stuff. We have training materials for leaders and so forth. And it's, we went clear across DirecTV, their whole organization, and we did the same with Miller Coors, believe it or not, but it didn't start at the top. Often it's in the middle, or even just a department chairperson or, head of a department, and it goes from there.
Are you familiar with the TV program Undercover Boss?
Yes.
Does that kind of exemplify, if you will, this intentional understanding of walking in the shoes, working side by side, hearing the human interest, understanding this is a person, not an employee ID, that there are the same pressures on each person there, and the fact that they can even get up in the morning and pull themselves together and show up and hold it together when they've got a son on trial, one in prison, one who's missing, and they're still getting up and faithfully going to work, and nobody knows that story because nobody really cares.
Exactly.
I came out of the days where we had, in the phone company, there was an organization that they did everything together, and so they were kind of a support organization for each other for what we called in management craft, which was the lesser group of people, the people that actually did the work that we got paid the bonuses for.
Yeah, right. There's two parts of that. One is, as organizations grow, and it can be a corporation, it could be a ministry, to be honest, or a not-for-profit. I mean, take the American Red Cross as an example, that as they grow, the leaders get further and further away from the front line work and are really dealing with big level issues and important issues about managing resources and so forth. But they don't, they lose touch with the day-to-day experiences of their team members. And the second part of that is it reflects on a statement I ask all of my participants is, does anybody else here have a life outside of work? I mean, do you have a family, friends? Are there health issues? And you're exactly right that we have life issues. This past year, my mother passed away, and in the months prior to that, we were dealing with that. And then I had a sibling who went through a serious health issue and passed away. That impacted my, emotional capacity to do work, and do I cease to be a valuable team member because I'm not performing at, 90% or above? Maybe, hopefully not. But, we have to understand that there's context, and whether you've got a teenager that ran away or you've got a child in the hospital or, financial issues, we've got to understand that people have life, and that if we pay attention and just spend a little time and listen, you don't have to be a counselor, you don't have to solve it, but one of the languages of appreciation is quality time. For some people, that's individual time, being able to, give their observations about work or get input. For some people, they just need a listening ear for 5 or 10 minutes. And for others, especially more and more younger employees, they don't want individual time with their supervisor, but they like to hang out with their peers. So going out to lunch or afterwards makes them feel valued and included.
When we look at a model and we look at modeling and try to come up with something which becomes the standard that we're trying to achieve, is there a model? Esprit de corps in the Marine Corps, civic organizations, Salvation Army or ministries. Is there a model organization out there that applies or that we should aspire to, or is there even a biblical unit that we should aspire to that we can look at and gauge, or is this, as we used to do in selling consulting, is that everybody was a new client, but the answer was always the same?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I had the privilege and opportunity to go speak to the top leaders of the In-N-Out burger chain. They're based out of California, Christian-based, family-owned, and every 3 years they bring together their top franchise owners or managers. They don't own them. But what's interesting is they set goals so that 90% of the people can reach the goals. So 90% of their managers were there because they reached their goals, which is a fascinating concept. And the thing that I loved about and learned from them is that, first of all, we're here to serve our customer, right? But the way that we do that best is by serving our employee. And so the owners have, and managers have, a servant mentality, not only towards the clients. That's not that unusual. I mean, it's and Chick-fil-A does a good job with that. I'm not as familiar with their management relationships, but In-N-Out has done an amazing job. Most of their managers worked in high school part-time, worked up through it. They don't have a college education and higher education. And so as a group, they provide ongoing financial education, marriage counseling. They brought Dr. Chapman in for the 5 love languages, and also address their family needs as far as like daycare issues and all that kind of stuff. So I thought it was fascinating, and that it's about serving, and I think I do some career coaching for young people. I serve family-owned businesses and deal with the family issues intertwined, and there's always somebody sort of stuck career-wise. And what I would call sort of the California approach to career development doesn't work, and that is, what are you interested in, what do you want to do? Nobody gives a rip about really what you want to do. It's about what can you do that I need, right? And so I think as Christians and followers of Christ, we have the opportunity to really be the leaders in whatever area that God calls us by asking, what's the need? How can I serve them? And if we do that well and continue to get trained and so forth, you're going to be successful, because when I talk to employers now, what are they looking for employees? They want somebody that's going to show up regularly, on time, listen to instructions, and pass a drug test. And most employers can't find people to meet that low standard. And so if we train our young people and ourselves to, just do the basics and serve, it's going to go well. So I maybe digress a little bit, but the issue is healthy workplaces often start out with a sick system, that they aren't structured well around communication, around decision making, about getting feedback from the front line. And then you have toxic leaders who are in there who are all about themselves. And then you have dysfunctional colleagues. And it's easy to point at other people. We're all dysfunctional to some degree, right? But purely dysfunctional people, they don't take responsibility for their decisions. They blame others. They're great at creating conflict between others. They don't follow through on responsibilities, and they fog the system because it's like who's really at fault here, and they're really good at getting away with stuff. So there's great practical teachings in the New Testament and clearly Proverbs and Ecclesiastes about how to become a valuable employee and member of a workforce that lets your light shine. We are different in the workplace now than people who aren't following Christ, and people want to know why.
Yeah, it's interesting that you make that reference, because everybody wants this Proverbs 31 woman. They forget that the Proverbs 31 man has to have a culture of appreciation in his home in order to allow his wife to become a prominent figure in the community. They have to have the support system. They have to have the backing to be able to step out of the norm. And in that time and in that culture, being a woman of honor in the community was not a common occasion. So the person behind her had to be, as we're instructed, let no negative talk come from your mouth, but only that which is for the uplifting and the encouragement of another. These are great practical words of building a culture of appreciation, but we apply it to church, we apply it to the body, but the workplace has become, it was supposed to be marketplace ministry. It was supposed to be the most fertile ground where the gospel could be permeated, because you spend 40 hours a week. You spend more time with them than you do your pastor, your wife, your children, than anybody in the world. It was supposed to be so fertile, and there was such an enthusiasm that the ministry marketplace was going to be the exploding. That was going to be the revival area. And it's turned out that it's not. It hasn't come, that expectation hasn't been met. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back with Dr. Paul White, I want to talk about the resistance, or not, maybe not resistance, but the lack of awareness that this is a vital, critical need in today's companies in order to grow contentment. And that the break in part of coming home, carrying that baggage into your home, carrying that baggage into your church, carrying that baggage into your faith life, is bogging you down. And it is because we spend so much time in the workplace. We're talking about the vibrant workplace, overcoming the obstacles to building a culture of appreciation, by Dr. Paul White, with a foreword by Dr. Gary Chapman. We'll be right back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, We've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The teaching archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our 1-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Dr. Paul White, author of The Vibrant Workplace, Overcoming the Obstacles to Building a Culture of Appreciation. In our first segment, Dr. Paul, we talked about that we have some old school ideas of motivational rewards, competitions, rankings, bonuses, inner circles, those kind of things, but in relational management, in cohesiveness, in finding a common bond, that is more effectively built on a culture of appreciation more so than a culture of recognition. And help me understand the difference between appreciation and recognition, because if we can have a clear delineation between those two, I think that the message becomes much clearer.
Sure. So recognition typically is focused on behavior, that we want a person to accomplish certain goals or smile or have a pleasant voice on the phone and so forth. It's observed and monitored by their supervisor, and that really all the supervisor want is better or more ongoing behavior. And so it's just doing that, and that's fine. There's certain things that's good for. Recognition is top down. It's from management, supervisors, and so forth down, and that it's basically about performance. Appreciation can be about performance kinds of thing. You value that somebody, really does good work, but it's about the person. And one of the cool things that we found is that it can go any direction. Appreciation is not top down, and that it can go from the receptionist to the vice president. It can go from somebody in IT to accounting or whatever. And so it frees up people's ability to appreciate and value someone, even though it's not necessarily, part of their responsibility. And in fact, an important lesson that we've learned over the time is, initially Dr. Chapman and I were focusing on supervisors and managers, but as we got out there and worked with teams, it's like, yeah, that's important, but being valued and communicating appreciation and encouragement from your peers is huge, partly because who knows when you have a bad day first? Your coworkers do, right? And that they know you better at a personal level. They can communicate it in a way that's meaningful. Supervisors often feel, and depending, like in manufacturing, you may have 30 or 40 people reporting to you over multiple shifts. You never see them. And so it feels sort of onerous to them. Whereas if we say, yeah, we need to hear appreciation from the top down as well as among peers, it really spreads it out and makes it work well. And it sort of creates a positive snowball. So, to net it out, recognition is about performance, and that's helpful, and good things happen when people are recognized for doing well. But appreciation is about the person. And we know that when people feel valued, good things happen in an organization. Work is work, we're not there just to make people feel good, but when people feel valued, they show up regularly, on time, they don't call in sick as often, they follow policies and procedures, there's less internal conflict over stupid little things, parking spots or, where you wear your badge or any kind of stuff, that your performance often goes up, not always, but most of the time. But customer service ratings go up. Managers like their work more because they're not having to deal with tardiness and people coming in, and you don't lose people as often. One research study showed that 79% of the people who leave a job voluntarily cite a lack of appreciation as the primary reason they leave. Most managers, business managers, and bosses think they leave because they get more money. Not usually true, because except for salespeople, that to leave a job is a very emotionally taxing process, to decouple emotionally and look and all that. It takes an emotional driver, and when you don't feel like anybody gives a rip about you, that they don't care about what you do. I went to one place, they said this person didn't show up for 2 months and they didn't even notice. It's like when you feel like you're invisible, you're out of there. And so good things happen, but it's not just about that you're the producer, but we value you as a person as well.
Do you find that, just to position this for my next question, that this is the applied product of your work with Dr. Chapman in establishing what the 5 languages of appreciation were, now to go in to organizations and help them overcome
the challenges, the obstacles that are there, the resistance,
and then apply these 5 languages.
Absolutely. And the issue, because so the 5 love languages, so 13 million copies. It's in 50 languages. It's a great book. If people haven't read, they should read it. Applying it to work's a little different because how do you know what they want, right? I mean, and you don't say if I want to show you appreciation, how should I do it? Most people are saying, I don't know, tell me thanks, and that's about all you get. So a key part of our work is we developed an online assessment. It's called the Motivating by Appreciation Inventory. It takes 10 or 15 minutes to take and identifies each person's primary language of appreciation, their secondary one, their least valued one, which is your blind spot, the one you don't care about and you probably aren't going to communicate to others. But also within that, we found that just knowing the language wasn't sufficient. Quality time. Okay, what do I do with that? I don't want to be their best friend. So we then give people choices of what that means to them, whether that is getting some individual time to be able to dialogue about business issues, or going out to lunch and not talking about business, or getting together with your friends and watching a sports event, or going for a walk over lunch hour, whatever. So and then people can choose. I want this from my colleagues. I want this from my supervisor. I prefer this from people that report to me, so that you don't have to guess. We don't. Probably the key biggest obstacle is busyness. And that's the number one reason everybody says they don't think that appreciation is communicated that much. We don't have time to do everything for everybody, to send emails or phone call all these different people, or spend time or do an active service. So we want to know, what do they need, what do they want, so I can hit the target with an arrow or a single bullet rather than shooting a shotgun. And so our job is to make life more efficient and that it works. And that's the cool thing, is that we sort of not only top down but peers, but also the key aspect of that has to be authentic. We give people the permission that if you don't appreciate somebody, don't try to fake it. That's not going to go well. It's going to undermine the potential trust that you have, but rather wait, and we can help you figure out either why you don't, because we're different people. There's some people that I irritate people because I'm pretty outgoing and I talk a lot. But some introverts irritate me. It's like, is there anything going on in your head? Share something, And so we have to learn about differences. And it's a cool exercise to figure out. Appreciation really flows from valuing. What do I value about this person? And we may have to work at it. I mean, at least they show up and they try to follow directions. And we start there, or like I said, cheerfulness, or somebody that doesn't complain all the time. So we help people be able to take this and make it real practical. And I think that's sort of a God-given talent he's given me, to take sort of complex kinds of things, distill them down into practical actions that people can use in daily life.
You're actually able to quantify what negativity is costing a company.
Yes.
When you present those results, how shocking is it? This reality check that you've given to these group of managers, how shocked are they at the results?
It depends. Some are, and I just did a training for a international travel group, and the head of HR, who was a numbers guy. I mean, he wasn't he was a number guy. He reluctantly, the worst word than that, I don't know what, I mean, just against his will, that he allowed me to come in and talk to their sales managers and group, because he thought, this is bogus, this is bunk. But even though I had the numbers, right? But when he heard the stories, and he heard the stories from his people about how they just feel treated like crap, and that they never heard anything good, and that they were ready to give up, and that when we worked through the exercises of understanding, all you have to do is say a little word about what they've done, or check in with them and see how they're doing. It's amazing how it doesn't take much to really encourage people. And he later, I mean, I got the message that he told his team that brought me in. He said, "You guys were right. We're on target."
There are situations, and I go back to old school, good to great.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have the right people on the bus? Then do I have the right people in the right seat on the bus? And
Correct.
in the area of the chief appreciation officer,
Hmm.
the one who's responsible for morale, the one who's responsible for making sure that it is an affirming organization, it doesn't exist on the organization chart today. The Secretary of State of Mind.
Yeah, well, actually, out in the West Coast, they had for a while chief happiness officers, which I just think is the stupidest idea that's come to mankind because we're all in charge of our own contentment and gratitude and happiness, and trying to make that happen for somebody else, I think, is a losing proposition. The issue becomes, and this is where the empowerment comes, is that it's each of our responsibilities to encourage, to show appreciation. It's not just a manager or supervisor, and that actually we can do it when somebody isn't. I mean, we can go around them and still have a positive impact. And so that's very important and very cool, I think, that no matter who we are, it's the same thing in the body of Christ. It doesn't matter who we are positionally, in some organization, we can make a difference. We can impact and show love and kindness to those around us. I mean, to me, I did a book on toxic workplaces, and as I was telling you earlier, the worst and the absolute worst stories came out of churches and ministries. Mm-hmm. And I speak to Christian organizations at times, and I say, we've got to practice speaking the truth in love, because what happens is either we don't speak the truth and we don't say anything, or we, wallow around it, or we speak it in a way that, we're beating people up. And we need to have grace and a graciousness about us, but to still be able to say, hey, when you do this, it really does not come off well. And yet I find in church organizations and ministries that is sadly missing. And I lived in Atlanta for a while, and the Southern culture is very different. I lived in Chicago for a while, and they got their own weaknesses. In the South, they sort of will, be kind and sweet to your face and sort of, cut you up behind your back. And then in Chicago, they'll beat you up in front of everybody, but at least you know what they think. So we've got to work on that.
What are some of the practical, real things that people can do today, our audience right now, they can start today to do, that can change and impact not only their attitude, but the attitude of the people they work with?
Yeah, great. 3 things. 1, focus on being grateful. And I start my presentation and say, why this is a good day? How many of us woke up? Okay, we all woke up. How many of us didn't have to sleep outside, unless we wanted to? Running water, safe to drink, food, didn't have to dodge mortars or bullets to get here. Life is good. We live better than most kings and queens did in the past ages, and we live better than 4 billion people today. We've got to keep things in perspective about how good life is and how good God is to us. You've got to have an attitude of gratitude. And I hate that phrase because it sounds so trite, but I mean, it's true. You've got to be thankful for what's going on in your life. Secondly is, don't enter into the negativity that's going on around you. I mean, if you want to make a difference, don't join into the grumbling or complaining or gossiping. I've been amazed at how many people talk about gossip being a really major problem in the workplace. And it's basically saying bad things about people that, you don't need to be talking about. Right. But don't engage in the negative, and find something positive to say. And it could be as nice as, man, I'm glad it's so cold out. I'm glad I don't have to work outside anymore, or thank God for air conditioning or heating or whatever it is. And if we focus on what is good, and have some checks throughout the day to do that, don't engage and foster the negativity that other people are doing. Don't try to change them. Don't worry about them. Just focus on yourself, and then try to, have a positive comment or tell a fun, appropriate joke, or laugh or smile. Smiles are amazing, how they light up the room and can make a difference, even for grumpy people. So it's pretty cool.
who 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 do we get to start this? You know, my ministry is called Igniting a Nation, and part of it came out of the vision that iron sharpens iron, but in that sharpening there's sparks, and it's not the iron sharpening iron that only affects two people. It's the sparks that ignite all these fires, and it's these sparks. So, who do we get to buy the book in the company or in the home, for that matter? Because this applies to home. These are words of affirmation and appreciation in the home, in the workplace, in the marketplace. My goodness, Walmart employees, the abuse that they take is beyond my comprehension. Or fast food workers, some of the abuse that they take, that people treat them as the lowest level of humanity. Homeless people are treated so poorly, as if that was their choice to be living in a cardboard box when it's 20 degrees outside. Listen, nobody chooses that lifestyle. We have to start somewhere. Where is the ignition point for this?
You know, it's interesting to me. I don't have an exact answer about that, because what I found is that within any organization, anyone that I've at least been exposed to, there's somebody that gets this and is excited about it. And I just say, start where you are. Okay, don't try to change the whole world. Don't try to change the whole organization. So it's those people who feel a heart response to say, you know, this is true. This works. And it's a good thing to do, to be kind to people, right? To be positive. And so I think it's those people. And to be honest, most of the time it's women. And most of the time they're in maybe a medium leadership position, that they understand their people, they understand that they're working hard, they do the best they can, they need to be encouraged, but it's not coming from the top down and all that. And so that's often the people that start it, and they start where they are. And I got to tell you, the major way that we impact a whole organization is that we run a pilot group with somebody who's excited about it, that says, hey, I'm willing to do this, and they have a little bit of organizational, at least at worst, tolerance, but usually some support, that they'll say, yeah, we'll help pay for this training or the resources or whatever. And then we watch it happen. And as long as it's people who are interested and are open, it goes well. And so we don't have to look for a Joan of Arc or, you know, whoever it might be. And that's the cool thing for me, is that it can be Joe, Jane, Samantha, whoever, average person that works, that understands about the need to treat people well in the workplace. And part of my job, I mean, I grew up professionally in the not-for-profit area and social services. They don't have money for trainers. So we tried to create low-cost training resources where we did videos, a training process, handouts that schools, public schools use. We had 650 colleges use it. It's used in manufacturing firms, the military, hospitals, government agencies, everywhere. But it just takes somebody to step out a little bit with their friends and say, hey, let's try to make this happen.
You know, the industry that comes to me just automatically is nursing management, medical centers, hospitals, that there's this high pressure, and there are people who are doing yeoman service and they're not getting the first thank you. They're being talked down to. Nursing management is just completely overlooked. The doctors are gods and the nurses are to clean up messes, but more lives are saved by nurses than by doctors, in my opinion, on an everyday basis, because they see what needs to be done. I
agree. And along with that, I mean, next week I've been invited to a major sort of summit of, I think, 15 to 20 leaders in the area of long-term care, nursing homes, and that kind of stuff, because that's one of the most toxic industries, and they can't keep people. I mean, they've just got a revolving door, and so we're going to try to figure out how can we start to change the culture so that whether you're a certified nursing assistant or, a cafeteria worker, that you're valued, even though you don't have the degree or whatever. So it's important.
Yeah, we do a once a month, 1 hour special every month on hope for the caregiver, because caregivers are there's 65 million of them in the United States. That's over 20% of the population of the United States performs a caregiving role. And you're dealing with somebody who is chronically, physically incapable of taking care of themselves, and you are the caregiver. And there is no affirmation, there is no appreciation. It is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And Peter Rosenberger has taken on the role of the voice of the caregiver, saying, you got to get somebody to come in and relieve you. You got to get out there. And they write music. He and his wife, who is a double amputee, write music for caregivers to try to give them encouragement and to do exactly this, a culture of appreciation in a place where there is the only hope is that tomorrow's pain is less than today's pain by an nth of a degree.
Right.
They're never going to get better. They're never going to recover. They're never going to not need all of this care. This is a life sentence. And I want to make sure that our audience knows that this is not a hidden gospel message wrapped around a business concept, that this book is written for the workplace. It contains solid tools and understanding for creating a culture of appreciation within your workplace. I can assure you that after what I've read of it, that if you apply it in the workplace, you're going to want to apply it at home. You're going to want to apply it at church. It's going to become contagious, and it's infectious in a very positive way, because people want to feel appreciated. And we don't have the tools because we don't feel appreciated. So we become reflectors and mirrors of those around us who are just trickle-down economics. I got held accountable, now you're held accountable. It just keeps rolling on down, and unless we break that pattern, we break that cycle. There's somebody that we're talking to right now that's working in a company that says, this resonates with me. I want to get this book, and I want to start this. I want to read it and see if I can affect that change in my workplace. It's going to take one person to catch the vision in each organization to help start this and make this into a movement. And imagine, if you will, the change in American culture if there was a movement of appreciation that began in the workplace, which is the center of life, whether or not you are God-centered, whether or not you're family-centric. You spend 40-plus hours a week in this workplace. You spend the same amount of time in the workplace you spend sleeping. So it is an important part of your life, and we have neglected this part about feeling appreciated. Dr. Paul White, The Vibrant Workplace, Overcoming the Obstacles to Building a Culture of Appreciation. I strongly suggest that if you care about yourself, your sanity, your mental health, and the level of appreciation of yourself and your coworkers, you'll be the one to get this book and ignite that fire within your workplace. Dr. Paul White, thank you so much for sharing the time with us here on Revealing the Truth.
My pleasure.
And that brings to an end our live broadcast day, but that doesn't mean we go off the air. All these segments that you heard for the last 4 hours will be repeated throughout the day until we're right back here in the studio at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, Central Time, with the next edition of Revealing the Truth. Until we see you here, we'll look for you on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, on WND-TV. You can follow us all over the internet, all over Facebook, all over social media. Look for us, Igniting a Nation, Revealing the Truth, and starting next week, the new 9 o'clock segment, Revealing the Bible, the in-depth study in Hebrew, English, and in Greek of the entirety of the Bible. It'll be taught every day in the 9 o'clock hour. We look forward to seeing you right back here when we come back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Until we see you here in Birmingham, Alabama, 9 a.m. Central Time, we bid you shalom.